Okay. Star Waterman, Chapter 12. Outsiders music, progressive country, reggae, salsa, punk, and rap. And the 1970s. Okay. That's Willie Nelson there. We're talking about a group that he played in called the Outlaws, which represented progressive country. This was inspired by the honky tonk and rockabilly amalgam of Bakersfield country music, the singer-songwriter genre, and the country rock style of musicians like Graham Parsons. And Willie Nelson, born in 1933, still alive, rise to fame in the mid-70s with a group known as the Outlaws. And also Waylon Jennings, 1937 to 2002. He was a Texas-born musician who was the centerpiece of the Outlaws. And Willie Nelson, though he started in Nashville, he left for Austin, Texas, and he fit in right there because he had the long hair and the beard and sang in an unpolished conversational voice, bridging the gap between rock and country without losing touch with honky-tonk roots. And in 1972, they released Ladies Love Outlaws. And that was from Wanted the Outlaws, a compilation of Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings' early recordings. All right, so Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain from the Red-Headed Stranger, 1975, was a country concept album similar to the concept albums of Rubber Soul and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Beatles, and Pet Sounds of Beach Boys. So this was in the mid-70s where progressive country musicians began to create albums unifying around a single theme or dramatic character. And this sold over 2 million copies. It was meticulously crafted song cycle outlining the saga of a broken-hearted cowboy. And the final track on there is Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. The accompaniment is acoustic guitar, electric guitar, mandolin, piano, harmonica, electric bass, and drums. It's an unconventional and highly recognizable vocal style. All right, now we get into reggae and very famous tune, I Shot the Sheriff. Reggae was a mixture of Caribbean folk music and American rhythm and blues. It was the first style of rock era to originate in the third world. And it became very popular in the United States in 1973 after the release of the Jamaican film, The Harder They Come, and its soundtrack. And musicians like Bob Marley and Jimmy Cliff achieved commercial success in the US in the 70s. British American rock musicians like Eric Clapton and Paul Simon, The Police, Elvis Costello found inspiration in the style of this. And rap music was influenced by the Jamaican dub, a branch of reggae tradition in which verbal performances are improvised over pre-recorded musical accompaniments. Reggae music was a composite of influences such as mento, a mixture of Jamaican folk songs, church hymns, sailor shanties, Cuban influences, which rose in the 19th century in Jamaica. And then in the 1950s, American rhythm and blues broadcasts from radio stations in Miami and New Orleans were popular among the youth of Kingston, Jamaica. In the 60s, shortage of US records encouraged sound system operators to set up their own recording studios in Kingston. New genres emerged out of the intersection of Jamaican folk music and American rhythm and blues. For example, ska, which was an onomatopoetic term derived from the style's typical sharp offbeats accents, and derived from rhythm blues with a rhythm section of piano, bass, guitar, and drums, and a horn section made up of combinations of brass instruments and saxophones played at very fast tempos with rhythm sections emphasizing the backbeats, singing influenced by R&B from blues influence to crooning. And it's also was influenced by the Rastafarian movement, which was founded by Josiah Marcus Garvey, 1887 to 1940. He had the Back to Africa repatriation movement spread among Black Americans in the 20s, and as a reinterpretation of passages of the Bible regarding slavery, salvation, and apocalyptic consequences. And he had a unique cultural practices special terminology, use of marijuana, and dreadlocks. And then rock steady, which is a buru style drumming used in urban versions of ska music, slower tempo than ska though. Ska tends to be more up tempo. Okay, so new genre came out in the late 60s. The word reggae derives from reggae, slang from meaning raggedy, everyday stuff. The tempo slowed more than rock steady, wide spaces between notes and emphasizing polyrhythmic heritage of Afro-Jamaican traditions. And rhythms were interlocking rhythmic patterns played by the guitar, bass, and drums. Political messages were central to reggae music. And Jimmy Cliff, who was born in 1948, was the star of the 1972 film The Harder They Come, and the vocalist on the title track of the soundtrack LP. And then you have Bob Marley, 1945 to 1981. He was the leader of the Wailers and a national hero in his native Jamaica. He's the musician most associated with reggae music. He was reggae's most effective international ambassador, known for songs of determination, rebellion, and faith rooted in the Rastafarian belief system. And the popularization of reggae with the best known cover of I Shot the Sheriff coming from Eric Clapton's 1974 recording. Clearly political song, precise significance, difficult to grasp for those outside of contemporary Jamaican politics. All right, then we get the rise of salsa music. We have Eddie Palmieri, born in 1936, and Willie Colon, born in 1950. They were born to Puerto Rican immigrant parents in New York City. Eddie's brother, Charlie Palmieri, 1927 to 1988, was a pianist and band leader who began playing with Tito Puente's Mambo Band in the late 1940s and had a key role in the Latin music of the 1950s and 60s. Eddie Palmieri's approach to piano shaped by modern jazz of the 1950s and 60s, and the albums were juxtaposed deep knowledge of stylistic history of Latin music with experimental moves. Willie Colon grew up in Boogaloo era and less influenced by the Cuban Tipico style. Distinctive approach added touches of West African, Panamanian, Colombian, and Brazilian music, as well as Puerto Rican styles such as Jibaro country songs. And Hector Lavoe, 1946 to 1993, became an icon of New York, Puerto Rican immigrant identity during the 1970s. And Ruben Blades, born in 1948, was the son of a middle-class family in Panama who attended Harvard Law School, gifted singer-songwriter, film actor, political activist, best known for a series of story songs that capture the feel of life in a neighborhood barrio. All right, so you can listen to Pedro Navaja. This was written by Ruben Blades and performed by Willie Colon and Ruben Blades, recorded in 1977. It was conceived as an homage to Mac the Knife, and it tells the story of a violent demise of a street tough who attacks a prostitute. And the arrangement is sophisticated musical framework, call and response, dominated motuno section. And yeah, so Latin music influence appeared to wane during the 70s, and most Latin musicians returned to the typical traditional sound of Cuban dance music rooted in the son montuno. And so salsa was more rhythmically charged, harmonically advanced style in the dance clubs in New York. Salsa or hot sauce, a verbal metaphor for the intensity, passion, and rhythmic flow. And that's the end of chapter 12, section 1.